friends. Hello, hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Hello. So today's video is going to be probably 3 hours long. So get your snacks. I'm not kidding, I have never in my life written this many notes, even for like a class like that I've taken. There's never been a point in my life where I needed to write this many notes for something, but I really just fell down a rabbit hole of the topic of today's video. There's so much to talk about and so little time. So today we're going to be continuing my series that I've been calling the Evolution of series. You can check out the one I did a couple of weeks ago on Gabby Hanna if you're interested. I've done so well since I posted it, and the fact that pretty much all of the comments have been incredibly positive. I cannot thank you guys enough. This is such a fun thing to make videos on. It's really interesting and cool, and I have a lot of fun doing it. I have like a list of topics and people to cover with this series, so if you like it, please let me know because I'll keep doing it. I'm really enjoying it. Definitely more work, but I'm like into it. And in that video that I talked about Gabby, I asked you guys who you think would be interesting to cover next, and by far the most requested person was YouTuber and MTV show personality, the founder of TanaCon, Tana Mongeau. A lot of you guys wanted me to do this on Tana, and I actually have always thought this would be really interesting to do on her because I think her story and her kind of trajectory into YouTube and how she has become somewhat of, I would argue that she's probably one of the more famous YouTubers on the platform, despite maybe not having as insane size of a following as like James Charles and Jeffree Star. I would argue she's definitely become a lot more mainstream, especially in the past couple of years. So I just think it'll be really interesting to take a look at her content, take a look at where she started, take a look at how the different things that happened to her and the different things that she did on YouTube kind of affected her channel and how she is now. Tana Mongeau uploaded her first YouTube video on May 15th, 2015 titled Hairdresser from Hell? ? I was actually very surprised that Tana started YouTube 5 years ago because I think that there's always this perception that she's like very young, but she really did start at a super young age. I think she was 16 when she posted her first YouTube video, or 15, somewhere in there. So she was really young when she started posting. In the video, which has over 3.4 million views, Tana is basically just telling a funny story. The video itself is actually entertaining, and I think that's something to point out about Tana just really early on before we get into like everything that goes on. I will say that Tana, even from the beginning in these first videos, had a very natural YouTube-like presence. Really any creators, like if you were to watch my first videos, if you were to watch anyone's first videos, they're always a little bit weird and kind of awkward, and usually people are kind of shy. They're not really sure how to talk or present themselves, so they're always kind of weird. But Tana's, even just her first videos initially are she's very confident, she's very comfortable talking. It's very obviously she's putting on a little bit of an act, but it's pretty clear that, you know, this is who she is. Creators who came over from Vine, or maybe creators who started on like Instagram or TikTok or Musical.ly, who switched over to YouTube and already kind of had a built-in fan base that followed them to YouTube, which definitely, if you have any sort of following of any size that you can bring to YouTube, it really helps. Getting your first 1,000 subscribers is like the hardest thing to do on YouTube. It's so hard to grow if you don't have any sort of like built-in audience. So Tana definitely started from zero and worked her way up. And I think in a way, she's kind of a really good example of that first generation of YouTubers who grew up watching YouTube. She's been very open about the fact that like Shane Dawson and Jenna Marbles have saved her life. She would go home every day and use YouTube as a way to escape from her family and from family problems. She talked very openly about wanting to go to VidCon and like meet these YouTubers and how much YouTube changed her life, and how she started YouTube because she wanted to do that for other people. And I think there definitely are a few other creators who had that same mindset, and that's why they started doing YouTube. But I think she's definitely one of the people who started YouTube with the intention of being a bigger YouTuber. Maybe not the intention, but with the dream of being a big, because I think intention sounds a little too calculated, but I think she started YouTube with the dream of becoming one of the big YouTubers that she loved and that like saved her life. And I think there are a few other people that fall into this type of category, but she's probably the one who has gotten the biggest from being just a person who loved YouTube and wanted to make it her job. Which is interesting because if you talk to a lot of teenagers now, kids who are like 14, 15, a lot of them do say they want to become professional YouTubers. That's like a legitimate thing that teenagers would like to start doing now. So I do find that interesting that she actually was very successful in that, when obviously not everyone is. And looking back at her content, especially in the beginning, you can really tell the deep love that she does have for YouTube, she posted so much. Like, she posted so frequently. And like a lot of people who are first starting out in YouTube, I think most newer YouTubers who started at this time, like 2015, are pretty guilty of this. Where when you first start posting content, it's very heavily inspired by what other people are doing. It's kind of hard to jump right into YouTube and start pushing out creative, innovative ideas. So people, when they first start, and I did this too, I think a lot of people do it, you kind of just, she did like the Bean Boozled challenge, like prank things. You could tell she hadn't fully found a niche that worked for her yet. She was just kind of trying to throw things at the wall and see what stuck. And it also seemed like she was just having fun. She was just creating content purely because she liked doing it. Now, I would say Tana's first more viral video is definitely her stalker stories. This was the first video that kind of put her on the map a little bit in terms of it got a ton of views. Literally started with her saying that she could potentially die from posting this video about her and her stalker and all of these things, which is quite a dramatic way to kind of reel people into a story time. Like, that definitely will get people to click on a video and then stay on the video and listen. Okay, I'm gonna be like straight up right now. And I'm not doing this to try to be mean. I just have to say this about especially the stalker stories. They are at the very least an embellishment, and at the very most, they are an outright lie. There's two... Watching these, especially as someone who's like 25 and like knows how the world works, I cannot believe that anybody ever believed these stories. I get it if you're like a younger kid and you're not entirely sure how things work. The things that she says in the video, there's just way too many gaping holes in her story that don't add up or make any semblance of sense. The idea that this person she's talking about would kill her is an extreme exaggeration. That's literally not the case, and I don't think a lot of the story that she told was true. However, I do think that especially for her demographic, which was young girls, this is at least a very entertaining story to listen to. Like, have the idea of having this like stalker that's been in love with her since kindergarten or whatever. It's an entertaining story. She tells it in a very entertaining way. So while it's definitely a lie and an embellishment, I still think she was entertaining while telling the story, and I think that's why a lot of people started to really like her. I think what the stalker story video doing so well told Tana, which it would really tell anybody, was to make more storytime videos, to make more videos about her stalker, to be a little bit more exaggerating in her videos. Because up until that point, her more storytime videos were pretty tame. It was like, my hairdresser messed up my hair. This woman in Target said I looked like a whore. Like, that was the videos. So she started making more stalker updates, including a video where she claimed she sent him to jail that frankly just makes absolutely no fucking sense. She also started using the very interesting art of YouTube clickbait, in which she said story times like, I crashed a car, which she didn't. I smoked weed with Selena Gomez. Obviously she did not. So she started using more clickbait. Her clickbait was like particularly bad, which at the time wasn't that uncommon. So I think that's why she never got clocked for it. And honestly, it kind of makes sense why she did it. Because at the time it was definitely common to do these really clickbaity things and then be like, whoa, but then it was a dream actually. And I was smoking weed with Selena Gomez in my dream and it was really cool. Or like in her I crashed a car story, she didn't actually crash a car, she just like almost got in a little fender bender, like stuff like that, you know, kind of extreme clickbait, but at the same time not that uncommon for what other YouTubers were doing, especially in like 2015. So Tana's channel is starting to grow, and it's actually, her channel grew really quickly, especially in the beginning. She did a video called Crazy Target, which got over 3 million views, and again is literally just a story that you would tell a friend offhandedly in like 2 minutes that she stretched out to 15 and made entertaining. In a way, Tana's old content is actually kind of refreshing, weirdly. She was growing at an incredible rate, and while it's very obvious that a lot of her stories aren't fully true. She was a teenager filming on her iPhone in her bedroom, gaining like hundreds of thousands of subscribers. It's very reminiscent of how old school YouTube used to be, where you didn't need this like crazy lighting setup. You didn't need a $500 camera. She literally was just filming on an iPhone propped up in her bedroom and telling stories about her life. I think something that really set her apart and made her more interesting to people was that despite the kind of flaws in her content in the sense that a lot of it was kind of clickbaity, a lot of it was not true. I think despite the flaws in her content, she was very interesting, particularly to the demographic she was aiming for, which was like younger girls, because she wasn't really like other lifestyle YouTubers at the time. At the time, this was when it was like Lore DIY, Alicia Marie, like Zoella, the kind of picture perfect Pinteresty lifestyle girl, family friendly. Tana was pretty much the exact opposite of those kind of YouTubers. She definitely was very vulgar. She was honest about the fact that she was like hooking up with guys. She was honest about, well, the whole partying thing we're gonna get into in a second, because while Tana was very honest that she used to party, the image that she portrayed to YouTube when she first started on the platform was that she was no longer partying and that all of that was in her past, which I'm not entirely sure if that's true, but we'll get into that. She also had these just like crazy life experiences, these crazy stories. And I think the reason storytime YouTubers were so popular, particularly at one point in time, was because it wasn't things that you had experienced. Like, I never stole my friend's car and almost crashed it, so it's entertaining to listen to somebody do that. But by the end of 2015, Tana had gained over 100,000 subscribers, and she was gaining very rapidly. Around this time was also when she posted probably one of her more infamous videos that still gets brought up in like interviews that she does to this day. It was posted at the end of 2015 and was called Getting Banged with a Toothbrush Storytime. I want to make it very clear, Tana did not get banged by a toothbrush. If you have ever seen this thumbnail floating around, people really present it like she did, and she didn't. Just to set the record straight, I watched the whole video. It was just a guy that told a rumor about her, and that was the rumor. However, I think she was kind of smart in the sense that that title very obviously got people talking about her. I think that video has over 6 million views at this point, and honestly, that video still gets referenced. So whether it's true or not is kind of irrelevant, because she's kind of she was, at least for a long time before TanaCon, I think, kind of known as like the girl who made the storytime videos about getting banged with a toothbrush. So as Tana kind of progressed, she kind of started to find more of her niche on YouTube, which was telling these really crazy, outlandish story times. She moved into her own home, for like out of her parents' house and into her own home. YouTube was obviously going very well for her money-wise. And you could also tell she was just kind of becoming more confident as a creator, a little bit more like real, I guess. Authentic is the word that people like to use. I know a lot of people don't like Tana now for a lot of reasons, and I agree with those reasons, and I'll get into them. But looking back at her very beginning videos, I really do get why she rose to fame on YouTube so quickly. She was incredibly relatable in that you could tell she had like been through some stuff. She was really self-aware, and honestly, some of her videos were entertaining to listen to once you stop paying attention to the details and accepted they're heavily embellished. In May of 2016, 7 months after she hit 100K, she had 1 million subscribers. So she gained 900,000 subscribers in 7 months, which is probably one of the fastest growing YouTube channels in that time of like 2016. She was really on a trajectory to be the next big thing on YouTube. She started doing collabs with people like Cody Ko and Gabby Hanna and really big name YouTubers. And just as a side note, if you ever want to cringe so incredibly hard, please go watch her collaboration with Cody Ko. I'm not even trying to be mean when I say this, because I adore Cody Ko, but he himself, it's not even just Tana's fault. He is horrible in that video. I literally cannot get through that video. I've sat through so many Tana Mongeau videos in the last 2 weeks, and I could not get through the one of her and Cody Ko. It is so incredibly awkward and horrible to watch. So if you ever need to cringe really hard and then never watch it again, I would watch that video. During this time, Tana's stories started to get even crazier. Like a Disney star stole her money for cocaine. It's an actual video. And also there's one where she talks about, this one was actually like, another one, I sat through it, but I was just like, come on. It's basically where she claims that she got her sexist principal fired because she wore eye makeup when she was in like the 4th grade. Completely not true, not how anything would happen. She literally says that the principal got fired right in front of her, and that she got to tell the principal she always hated her before she walked out the door fired from her job. Which, if any of you have ever lived a life, you know that that's not true. Can't get over, I'm telling you, I'm not trying to harp on this, but I feel like it's very important to talk about in her content the amount of embellishments and lies, because I think it really bit her in the ass later on. I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but something that's really interesting about her 2016 content is the way she talks about partying and use. Basically, the way that she discusses these things in the beginning phases of her YouTube channel, like 2015, 2016, is that she used to be really into partying. She realized it was bad decision making, so she stopped doing those things. And she talks about this like a lot. It's a focus of her channel. And whenever she talks about drinking or doing drugs or talks about, you know, those things, she talks about them almost as a cautionary tale. It's like she's trying to be like a big sister to her audience and trying to tell them the reasons they probably shouldn't do those things. They're still humorous and funny stories, but she tells them in a way that's not really glorifying what she did. She's talking about how like dumb it was to do a lot of these things. And I think what's really interesting is if you listen to how Tana talks about her life now, she definitely heavily implies that during this time she was still really partying like a ton. So I think it's kind of one of two things. It's either she's lying currently about how she used to be, or what I think is more likely is at the time when she started growing and finding success, I think she definitely thought that people would judge her and not like her as much if they knew that she partied and did those things so freely. She was worried about public perception a lot of herself. And so she really heavily said like she didn't do those things. And I think it's only really important to note because it's very interesting how her brand has done a total 180 since starting YouTube. If you watch her like original videos, she still curses and she's like talks about things that I think some people wouldn't find very family friendly, but she's definitely a very almost like goody type of person. Like she really prides herself on being very positive. You definitely wouldn't look at that old content and think, oh, this girl's always late to collaboration, which is absolutely not the perception that she gives off about herself now. So the end of 2016 is when Tana started getting a little bit more hate and kind of started getting involved in some more messy drama. Because Tana grew so rapidly and because all of a sudden there were so many more eyes on her and her content, more people were seeing it, and I think more people were like, hey, you're lying, especially about the stalker stories, because it's like, I just don't know what's real and what's not. I know logically what I think is real and what's not, but she tells these stories with such conviction of them being true that I think that's why so many people do believe her, is because she really has like a conviction to her. But then I'm like, logically, I know they're not true. But anyway, she started getting covered by drama channels. John Kuckian, remember him, talked a ton about her. He kind of exposed her a little bit because he had an interview with her former assistant where the assistant really just exposed like a ton of lies that she had told. Multiple lies. He even interviewed her at one point, Tana, and Tana lied like right to his face. So she got a lot of heat for that, and people she's kind of starting to get painted as like the YouTuber who had these embellished story times. She started making a lot of Uber story times where it was like, my Uber driver almost killed me. Like she's where that meme kind of came from. Now, during this time, Tana also had a habit of going on YouNow, if you remember what YouNow is. Where she would like go on YouNow and she would rant and she would say all these things, and it kind of in a way cracked the facade a little bit of who she was on her. If you watched her YouNows and you watched her YouTube channel, I think you got a better full picture of who she was, whereas if you just watched her YouTube channel, you would see a kind of different version, a more edited version of herself, which is what a YouTube channel is, to be fair. She also during this time did a collaboration with Shane Dawson, which has almost 20 million views. The video is about her peeing on Shane Dawson, and really. It has almost 20 million views, and this kind of only further propelled her into being a bigger creator and a bigger star, because at the time especially, Shane's kind of credibility towards you as a channel was huge. So I think it's really important to preface before I start talking about the iDub situation, kind of what happened leading up to the iDub situation, because this was Tana's first very, very big, I don't like to call it a scandal, her very first big controversy, let's say. So in 2016, some old vines started resurfacing of Tana when she was younger, basically shouting the N-word. And not just in a like, oh, she's singing it in a song, which is not okay either. But I want to say like the context of this really matters because it really was awful. Basically the video is her saying word. Not only is she just saying it, she's saying it in a very aggressive and mean way towards her Black friend. And since then, Tana has said that he thought it was funny and everyone around them thought it was funny and shocking, and that's why she did it. She just did it for humor. But the way that she handled the situation initially was that she went when it first started resurfacing and she was kind of getting called out for it. This kind of became infamous because it's such a bad response to having videos like that come out. She basically went on Snapchat and said that she thought the N-word meant homie or friend, and that she didn't know what it meant because growing up in Vegas, everybody used that word very freely, and she didn't realize the ramifications. She didn't realize that it was a bad word to say. It has Black Lives Matter in her bio, so literally, how can she be racist? I can't believe she said that. She really said that. The thing about this that I personally found so troubling was that it's kind of the starting point for a really extensive list of Tana not being able to take accountability and making excuses and straight up lying about situations and belittling situations to make herself look better. So what happened next was kind of nutty and is a very complex situation to unpack. I'm gonna do my best, but know that I'm definitely doing an abridged version for the sake of time. iDubbbz is a content creator here on YouTube who has, I believe, about 6 million subs and is pretty famously known for his content cops. He's done them on like Keemstar, Leafy, Rice Gum. In these videos, he basically picks a creator he thinks kind of needs to be humbled almost. And in 2016, Tana made a huge mistake and tweeted at him saying something along the lines of, "You have 3 million subscribers and you say the N-word, you should kill yourself." This was bad for a lot of reasons. Number one, don't tell people to kill themselves. Like, what? Come on. But also, this was during the time when she was also getting called out for saying the N-word and horrifically, absolutely did not take accountability. So from iDubbbz's perspective, she looked like a hypocrite. And honestly, she was a hypocrite. Before I get fully into this situation, I feel like I have to preface it with, I think they both are wrong. They both suck in this situation. That's something to note about iDubbbz is he uses the word and other very non-PC is the best way to put it, but it's racist and, you know, homophobic language. He uses all of these things because in his mind, he thinks that people give too much power to words and that by saying them, he will desensitize them, and it's logic. In my personal opinion, I think that's bullshit. I think this is like a side tangent a little bit, but it's relevant to what happened. He isn't a person who is ever affected by racism. He doesn't get to reclaim the word. He wasn't affected by it. He wasn't actively oppressed as a result of it. I don't think he has the jurisdiction, if you will, to reclaim those words or claim he can say them just for the sake of not being PC. I think that at the time when all of this happened, he got way too much credit because what he did was objectively, like, people thought it was so savage. He's just as problematic, if not more problematic than Tana. So the fact, and honestly, a lot of the creators he calls out. So the fact that he calls out creators at all in the first place and then makes a whole video about Tana calling her out for calling him out when that's exactly what he does, is just, it's just a big ball of hypocrisy, in my opinion. With that being said, I'll explain what happened. So iDubbbz went to her live show. Tana does live shows. She still does them. She's been on like 5 tours, I think. She did a live show, and before her live show, she would do a meet and greet with all of her fans. If you bought a ticket, you got to meet her. So he decides to go to Tana's tour wearing her merch. He goes up to her and he puts his arm around her and he says, "Say N-word." And he says the N-word, hard R. And she, in my opinion, rightfully so, kind of freaks out and like walks away from him and is like, "What the why did you just," like, she's like shocked, honestly. He gets kicked out and he's like, "Why are you kicking me out? I paid for it." He's trying to like meme it. And this very quickly got super memed. But the thing about this is, like, looking back, and I think in retrospect, it's like, what about that is so savage or funny? That's such cheap humor. He went to her live show and purposely tried to do something that he knew would probably scare her. And he was also critiquing her for being a hypocrite and calling him out for saying the word when she did as well and had addressed it so poorly. But at the same time, she wasn't like wrong for calling him out. Especially like in 2016, you shouldn't have had a huge fan base and been openly encouraging people to say slurs and racist language just because you thought it helped reclaim things. You're really just enabling people to use racist language. I also think, honestly, and this is one thing I will say, because Tana made a video where she just really screwed up, like point blank, it was a bad video to make. It was the wrong move. However, I will say there's one point of the video that I actually do agree with her on, and that iDubbbz kind of mocked and made fun of, which I get why he did, because because in his head, it's not intimidating to do what he did. But I can't imagine being 17 and being a like celebrity of sorts and having a guy come up to me and do that. I actually think I would probably be scared. And Tana talks about that in her video. She talks about being scared. Like, does he have a gun? Is he gonna hurt me? Is he gonna hurt my manager? Is he gonna hurt my friends? She has that going through her head. And honestly, maybe I'm just a very anxious person, so I think the same way, but I don't blame her for being scared when iDubbbz did that. I can't imagine thinking someone's your fan and then them saying something so provocative like that. And especially since we do live in America, it's not that out there to assume that something bad might come from somebody saying a word like that and being so openly racist like that. That's not an outwardly insane thought process to have. So I just want to make that clear because I think that was one part of the video he really mocked her about and like made her look like an idiot. But I actually got, especially watching it all back, I get why she was freaked out. With all that in mind and everything with iDubbbz out of the way, I want to focus on how Tana handled the situation. After he did that, Tana didn't know that it was iDubbbz who had done that. She didn't recognize him. She didn't know it was him. And so she made a video for her YouTube channel that is still live titled The Word, where she describes the experience that happened. And in this case, she royally up. Not even just in the way she described the experience, because she definitely dramatized the experience in the sense that she was like, he was clutched onto my arm and I felt like I couldn't get away. I tried to pull away once and I couldn't, so I tried to pull away again and then I broke free, and she's like, and he put his thumbs up, and it's like when you watch the video, she got away very quick. He wasn't trying to hold her down. She got away very quickly. Like, she dramatized the entire event greatly, which only further proves my point that all of her story times are overly dramatic and not all of them are real. Anyway, I think where she honestly though screwed up even more in this video was the fact that she still did not address or own up to her own very racist videos that were resurfacing. In the video, the only thing she really refers to is the fact that she used to sing along to the N-word in songs or rap songs and told her fans that they shouldn't do that and like they shouldn't be like what she did. The fact that she was incapable of owning up to what she said really discredited the rest of the video. So then the content cop dropped and he really just described everything, called her a hypocrite, basically painted a picture of why what she did was so bad, painted a picture of her being just a bad creator, and this really blew up in her face. She eventually did make an apology video, and it wasn't like the worst apology video you've ever seen. I'd give it like a 4 out of 10. Looking back, you can definitely see places where there are definite manipulation, whether it's subconscious or not, which it's not really obvious if it's subconscious or not at this point in her career, but talking about how she wanted to like herself and how she wanted to end her own life because of this situation. Personally, I did find that a bit manipulative to put into an apology video. Not that it's not, you know, important to talk about. Not that I think you should hide your mental health struggles, but I do think there's a time and a place if you want to be so open and talk about them to talk about them. And I don't necessarily think an apology video is the place to do that, if that makes sense. Either way, it was really just her being like, I'm stupid, I messed up, I don't deserve an audience, and that was kind of it. The whole incident, I think, was a lot bigger than just, it's definitely, first of all, it stunted her growth on YouTube. Like, she was at a trajectory to be a huge YouTuber, like way bigger than she is now. And this whole thing absolutely stunted that. And not only did she like lose subscribers and it was a whole thing, this whole situation really opened her up to a completely different side of the internet. Because before, her side of the internet was like the lifestyle, the storytime YouTubers. They had a very specific sort of niche audience. And I would say that because iDubbbz has a polar opposite audience, it really opened her up to a type of criticism that I don't think she had ever seen or received before. So I think this was when she really started to get like intense amounts of hate and people really just like memeing her, people mocking her, people being really, really ruthless. And not to say that I don't think the criticism of her was deserved, especially for the things. I obviously think that was deserved, but I do think that it opened her up to a lot of criticism and a lot of hate that I don't necessarily think was fair. Like, people, I never think it's okay for people to tell other people to kill themselves. I just don't. I think that after this scandal, there was absolutely a personality change in Tana that was like almost a switch flipped. It was super reflective in her content. You can see that she really started to give less of about her content being family friendly and positive, and her more goody personality absolutely went away. She started making content where she was like getting blackout drunk in Mexico. She got arrested at Coachella. That story time is also incredibly fake in some parts. She got like evicted from her home. I think the reason her content style changed up so much and she kind of somewhat dropped this more goody act was because she already knew so many people didn't like her in 2017. People really disliked her, actually like actively disliked her. And I think this kind of made her rebrand herself almost into this like, I don't care, I'm a fuck up, I'm a mess, I'm a party animal, I'm a hot mess express, like sign me up for that, that's who I am. And she really embraced what everybody kind of was saying about her. She like fed into this narrative that she was a liar and lied about her story times and that she was always late to collabs, and really rebranded as somebody who just did not care. I think in a way, this was almost a bit of a calculated move, whether she knew it or not. Because before all of this stuff had happened with iDubbbz, she definitely had this more like, she held herself to a high standard, which I don't think is a bad thing. I actually preferred watching her videos before this switch happened because she actually cared about things. She really tried to be, you know, use her platform for good things, and she cared. And I think because she had held herself to this standard, because of all these things, because she had held herself to this more goody standard, bar for her was higher. So when all of this came out about her, she had a lot farther to fall because the bar was so high. So I think after everything happened with iDubbbz and after everything happened with the videos resurfacing, she decided that in order to not allow that to happen again, in order to not fall so far again, she would just set the bar lower and keep the standard for her lower. And whether that was a conscious decision on her part to maybe keep her career going or whatever it was, whether that was like conscious or not, it's hard to say. It's hard to say if it was just an effect of what happened or if it was a decision, but it's definitely a noticeable thing that I think if you really watch her content through, you can see that change happen, and it's pretty clear to see why it happened. So Tana, after this whole thing happened, started going back to making the content that made her really popular. Lots of story times. These story times were honestly even more like upfront and even more crazy and wild. At the end of 2017, Tana was the self-proclaimed mess of YouTube, and honestly, it was kind of like working for her. People praised her so much for being authentic and real, and she just didn't really care about much. And I think it's also kind of important to note the way that she talked about drinking and drug use. Absolutely, the switch flipped around this time as well. She started to talk about use and drinking in a way that really glorified it and showed her lifestyle and her partying in a way that really glorified what she was doing, which was underage drinking and doing pretty dangerous drugs. And this was when I personally, I mean, I obviously had a lot of problems with a lot of things, but this was kind of right when I was starting my YouTube channel was when this stuff was happening. And this is something I took a lot of issue with when I first started my YouTube channel, mostly because I just think glorifying drug use like that, while she paints it as, well, I'm just trying to be as real and authentic as possible, all these other will just like do it on the side and keep it a secret from you, but like I'm being real and authentic, so I'm telling you that I do drugs. Sure, that's a take of how to, you know, paint that as a good thing, but I don't ever think that having a very young fan base and promoting things like Xanax, there's literally a vlog where she allegedly was driving under the influence and she kept that in the vlog. I will never sit here and be like, oh, she's just so authentic and real that she is doing all of those things and like high-key glorifying it and promoting it as like a great lifestyle to lead. I'm never gonna do that. She also started dating Bella Thorne, which actually was a huge way that she sort of became a lot more mainstream. Bella Thorne is obviously, she's a Disney Channel person and she's also done a lot of stuff after that. She's obviously a lot more of a mainstream traditional celebrity than Tana, and so being linked to Bella was definitely very good for her in a career sense because she absolutely became more of a mainstream public figure. Tana also at the very end of 2017 released her first song called Hefner. You know what? I know the words now because I've listened to it a couple times. It's a catchy song. It's not a great song. It's obviously like meant to be kind of a joke. Like she's talking about being like, she talks about it in the sense that she was like, well, I'm trying to break down gender roles. She tried to make it a lot more deep than it actually was, which was really just like kind of a rap song. It was at a time when a lot of YouTubers were doing rap battles and diss tracks. Making rap music was very popular amongst like Jake and Logan Paul and Rice Gum. So it's kind of a popular thing to do. So it kind of makes sense she kind of hopped on that trend. And the video included a scene of her and Bella Thorne like hooking up. So obviously people were very interested in that aspect of it. She also had another rap song I just want to talk about quickly called W that was like actually bad. And I think it's more bad because she actually, the like to dislike ratio is like shocking. I think it's actually so bad, not even because, no, it's a bad song, but I think it's also so bad because you could tell that like she had that success with Hefner where people actually were like, wait, this is kind of fun, because it was kind of just like a goofy song, like whatever. So she tried to write like a legitimate rap song that was like her flexing and like legit, and that was really bad. It was like it was a bad music video. The music video is so awkward. The actual rapping in it is so weird. It's like she's trying to flex, but she's not. And the best thing that came out of the music video W is that this kid named Lucas, who if you know Fred from when YouTube first started, it's him, but he's Lucas himself now. He made a reaction video to it that is absolute gold that I will link down below and you should absolutely watch. If you want to like listen to her music without listening to her music and have some funny commentary, 10 out of 10 would recommend. The end of 2017 also brought just kind of like, she definitely wasn't making basic YouTube content. Definitely some like stranger choices for content. She filmed an entire video with her, Lena, and Adam22 where she watched them have sex and just recorded her reaction. And then she also made a video, this is real. She made a video talking about how she had a sleep paralysis demon that was trying to have sex with her aggressively, and that is the reason that she has so many bruises on her body, is because it's not just sleep paralysis, it was a real demon that is haunting her. She's being haunted by a demon and it is giving her bruises. That's like a 45-minute video I watched. Some of this stuff, I'm not trying to be, I really hope this isn't coming across as me being like mean, but I do feel like it's important to note like some of this content is just so out there, and I do think that that is why she's so popular. It's like, who thinks to talk about that? Who is getting bruises and thinks that it's a demon haunting them? Okay, I've already been talking for an hour and we haven't even gotten to TanaCon yet, so this video is going to be a mammoth. So in 2018, things got weird. Basically, Tana started the year, pretty early on in the year, made a video talking about why she wasn't going to be attending VidCon 2018. And actually, this video, I really sided with her on this. Basically, for the past like couple of years, Tana had been told by VidCon that she would be a featured creator. She promoted the event, and then at the last minute, they didn't make her a featured creator. The first year, I can kind of understand because she had like 1 million subs. There's tons of YouTube creators. But the second year, they really screwed her over because she was literally on the building of VidCon and on all of these panels because she was on the biggest YouTube Red show called Escape the Night, and they still would not give her a featured creator pass so she could like get backstage to her panels. She's on the building, of course she's gonna get mobbed. Why would you not just give her a featured creator pass? Regardless of if you think it looks bad on you guys because she's been so problematic, like kind of is irrelevant because she's on the building, like you're associating with her. Why wouldn't you just give her a badge? So I actually agreed with her video on this whole thing. I got why she was upset. A lot of other creators did too. A lot of people made videos supporting Tana. A lot of people made videos talking about like their bad experiences at VidCon and how VidCon as a whole is kind of messed up. For some reason, after this video was made, instead of just like taking, this would have been a great time for Tana, I think, to just like take the W. Like she really told off a big company and got a ton of support for it. Like it went really well for her. And I think if she had just taken the W, a lot of what happened next would never have happened. But for some reason, after making this video, Tana decided that it would be a really good idea to do a convention herself to rival VidCon called TanaCon. And TanaCon was going to be in Anaheim, which is where VidCon is, and was going to be held the same weekend as VidCon. And this was all in 2018. This feels like so long ago. It's crazy that this was like 2 years ago. She really made a big deal about promoting this event as a free event with an optional, like you could decide to upgrade to VIP for $65, which was just ended up not being true. But she had some really huge names coming. I mean, she had Shane Dawson and like Ryland and Morgan, which was huge at the time because Shane never did meet and greets. She had Casey Neistat, Colleen Ballinger, members of the Vlog Squad, like tons of these really huge creators, and Emma Chamberlain. It really added to the credibility of the event that so many of these huge creators were also going to be there. There's like literally thousands of videos if you want to know, if you like miss TanaCon and you want to know more about what happened, there's so many videos you can watch. But like point blank, breaking it down really simply, she booked it at a hotel that had a capacity of like 1,000 people, and she sold 5,000 tickets, her and her partner who was in this with her, Michael. And so they oversold. They had kids waiting outside outside for 5 hours in the sun with no food, no water. Inside the event, there was like nothing to do. You watch vlogs from the event and it's just a bunch of kids like walking in circles, and then randomly like Big Nick comes on and raps, and then you have like a wedding that happened. But overall, it was an absolute train wreck, a complete disaster. Nobody really got to meet any creators. It wasn't really a fun event. They didn't have enough room for it, and they knew before bringing all of those people to Anaheim that they didn't have the room for that amount of people. It was basically canceled after like 3 hours, and just absolute, like, it was basically the Fyre Fest of YouTube. Looking back, it's really difficult for me to believe that Tana actually got away with this virtually unscathed. She really, what I think a lot of people, I mean, people do talk about this, but it's just nuts to me that it's like, that situation could have been absolutely deadly. There was a huge lack of security, so nobody was really checking bags. There were tons of kids there without their parents, unsupervised, not like kids, but like 13, 14-year-olds, unsupervised without their parents, who got essentially evicted from the hotel and had nowhere to go and no parents to call who were like close to come get them. The whole thing was really just an absolute disaster waiting to happen, and she is so lucky that the only thing that did happen was one girl passed out from like an anxiety attack and had to be taken away on a stretcher. She is blessed that that is the only thing that happened. I think the reason Tana got away with this whole thing, again, is because of Shane Dawson. Shane made a video very shortly after a docu-series about TanaCon where he like interviewed people who went. He interviewed Michael Weist, who was the person who kind of put it on with Tana. He was the owner behind the company. And watching those documentaries again, I think at the time, because Shane had a reputation of being very fair and balanced, those documentaries seemed very fair and balanced. However, if you look back at them, there's definitely a very strong bias in those to be in favor of Tana and paint Michael as the bad guy. And the video that Tana released about a month after Shane's videos and about a month after TanaCon, where she told things from her perspective, kind of had the same sentiment. The video is an hour long, and honestly, it's not really worth the watch. The beginning of the video is her literally accusing this guy, Michael, of like and stealing money and all of this crazy stuff, and then her being like, but I'm not going to talk about that in this video, even though she literally did. And then it's a whole lot of her just being like, Michael was supposed to do this, 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 and this, and he royally screwed me over, and he lied to me, and everyone lied to me, but it's all my fault, and I'm going to take accountability. And that was really the whole video. And I think this is important to note. Based on like all the research I've done, I watched a ton of videos about TanaCon and just kind of like what happened after. Nobody got their travel expenses paid for, which she did promise she would do. I've brought that up in videos, and people are like, well, that would be expensive for her. What did you expect her to do? Pay for people's plane tickets? And it's like, no, I really actually didn't expect her to do that, but she said that she was going to do that. And she told people she would do that and promised that to people. So in that respect, I did expect her to do that. She didn't. There's still people who literally have not been refunded for their tickets. And really the only thing she offered people was like free TanaCon merch, which nobody wanted because it was a failed convention. She really just claimed to take a lot of the blame for TanaCon without actually taking any of the blame or accountability. And while I do think Michael Weist did deserve a fair share of that criticism, like while I absolutely agree he was a huge part of the problem, at the end of the day, it was TanaCon, not Michael Con, so she should have taken just as much responsibility for it as he did. The other reason I think she got away with this so unscathed is because of what I talked about before. The bar for her was set so low because she herself set it so low. Even at TanaCon, Gabby Hanna went out there to perform and things were already falling apart. And she literally said, well, everything's falling apart, but this is TanaCon, so what did you expect? A lot of people literally went to TanaCon with the sole purpose of watching it fail because they knew that it would, because it was TanaCon. And honestly, this whole situation, her fans really readily forgave her because the bar, like I said, bar was super low. But I also think what this showed me, at least, especially watching all of this back, what it showed me was this was a definite flip of like, okay, I think sometimes Tana can be kind of manipulative. This situation really shows how like calculating I want to show a clip that I just thought was really interesting because she's so calculating. It's almost kind of freaky. This is from Shane's documentary, and it shows Michael confronting her and being like, you told everybody that you put money into TanaCon, that you put tens of thousands of dollars into TanaCon when that wasn't true. And I want to just show you like how she reacts to that.
You said something earlier. You mentioned you might lose your house and like you're gonna go bankrupt and all of that. You said that Tana told her audience and told everybody that she was putting a lot of her own money in this, and you said that's not true.
What do you mean?
Yeah. I mean, explain me saying I'm putting my own money into it. Because whenever I've talked about that, I've talked about the investments that were like made. You told me we're in this together, this is our money, I'm investing it here. And I also don't understand the bankruptcy thing. You've told me one thing about the way that you make your money, but every single person you manage has told me that like it's your mom's real estate money and you have plenty of it and you've scammed them and that, like, fuck, Michael, the shit that your clients have told me over the past 2 days, I can't get out of my head. Everyone's fucking...
That is so disgusting. That is actually so sad.
It's interesting because if you watch her content for long enough, you can see almost her tells of when she's confronted about things she doesn't want to discuss. When she's confronted about things, and I'm not saying this to say, oh, she's this evil person. I'm saying this because I think it shows a pattern of behavior. There's a definite pattern of behavior here with her behavior and the way that she reacts to it. When people confront her about things that she doesn't want to talk about, she gets this like definite look in her face, the one you just saw. I've seen this look like multiple times, and she's kind of just starts like talking. She talks very quickly, and she starts talking so quickly that she literally changes the subject of everything and redirects to something else. It's like it's a pattern at this point that I've just noticed amongst her content that I think is another reason she tends to get away with things, because it's easy to miss if you're not looking for it. After TanaCon, things went back to normal on her channel. She didn't really lose a lot of subscribers because, like I said, precedent for her messing up had already been set. I would say for the most part, the rest of her 2018 and 2019 content was just kind of normal. She got a little less into story times, and she started, which makes sense because story times were kind of phasing out of being popular, and she really got into more kind of like lifestyle content. She had hauls, vlogs, challenges. She had a bunch of videos with Bella Thorne when they were dating, and then when they broke up, she started dating this guy named Brad, who I really only know as being the guy who looks like Justin Bieber who ate a burrito. That was like his claim to fame. In 2018, I would say Tana, after TanaCon, she kind of just stayed under the radar, posted lighthearted content, definitely started posting a lot less content on YouTube. I'm sure there was like a scandal here or there, because there always is, but I didn't think they were like relevant to the story of her career. Probably say 2019 was very interestingly probably the worst and best year for her in general. First of all, Tana got an MTV show. It is a YouTube series show. I think that was like a little misrepresented when we first found out about it, but Tana got an MTV show. I have multiple videos on the MTV show that are like very detailed about it and like what happened and all the drama and everything bad that happened on it. And so do a lot of other creators. I'll link some of them down below. So I'm not gonna get too in depth with this, but I think if you're just looking at it from a career perspective, this was probably one of the best things that happened to her, in the sense that she got a lot more notoriety outside of her fan base. However, it was probably the worst thing that she ever did, in the sense that people who had been fans of her for a long time suddenly were not her fans. Up until this point, Tana was absolutely known as like the self-proclaimed YouTube wild child. She's always late, she sleeps in, she parties all the time, but people still really liked her despite all of these mess ups and all of these scandals, because she seemed very likable. She seemed very nice. The way that she edited herself in her YouTube videos was very complimentary of her. And I think the MTV show really changed that, because it showed a different side of her. It showed her being really mean and nasty to her manager, not caring about other people's times, being like rude to a nurse, being, you know, rude to a person who works at a restaurant. It showed her being kind of not nice. That's the best way I can put it. Like, she just wasn't nice on the show. It's almost like the show was a representation of the worst two versions of herself. And I do think MTV probably showed her at like her worst moments. Tana has also gone on to talk about the fact that her mental health was really bad when she was shooting these 2 seasons, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But I do think the MTV show really hurt her reputation, and that a lot of her die-hard fans started seeing her in a different way. And I also think the MTV show directly coincided with her relationship with Jake Paul. Again, tens of millions of videos about this whole situation, but I will say, basically Tana and Jake Paul started dating like kind of publicly on YouTube, and then he proposed to her on her 21st birthday in Vegas, and then they got married, and the whole thing was documented on this MTV show. Tana's kind of whole thing about this is that she caught feelings and she was really deeply in love with Jake, but that he wasn't in love with her, and she wanted to seem like the cool girlfriend, so she allowed him to have an open relationship, but it really hurt her, and that she basically was heartbroken by Jake Paul, and that was her whole thing. Like, that's what she said about it. I don't really know if I believe that, and honestly, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, but the whole relationship was really weird because they got married, but they didn't actually get married. It was completely a fake ceremony. The real problem I had with the whole Tana marrying Jake situation, besides the fact that I don't like Jake Paul, is really just the fact that they charged people $65 to watch their wedding live stream that wasn't then completely dysfunctional, didn't work, and you literally couldn't even see them get married because the vantage point of the live stream camera was so bad and the internet and Wi-Fi connection was so laggy that people paid $65 to watch nothing. And also the ceremony was like 3 hours behind. So, and it was fake. It wasn't even a real wedding. So, and really the takeaway from this is Tana has since made a couple of videos where she talks about the Jake Paul thing and she talks about the MTV thing. And really the big tie-in of all of those is her mental health. I believe Tana when she says that she struggles with mental health and like addiction. And really recently she said that she has been working with a life coach, and I genuinely hope that that's helping her. I genuinely hope she's getting help. This is a part of her content that I really empathize with because I struggled with addiction and mental health issues, still struggle with mental health stuff at a really, really young age, and I understand and relate to what she's talking about, and I do believe her that she is deeply struggling with these things. Like fully, there's not a question in my mind that she does struggle with that. With that being said, I do think there comes a point when you have to work on things outside of the internet. And this isn't even just a critique of Tana, because I think so many YouTubers do this, where I think a lot of YouTubers start using YouTube as their therapy. They use their audience as their therapist, and they just kind of talk about all of their problems on YouTube, and then they don't actually really do a lot of work behind the scenes to get any sort of help. And Tana particularly does this and talks about all this, she claims, because she wants to be an advocate for mental health. She wants to be very open and honest and real about the struggles that she faces. And I think that's actually a good thing. I think the more we talk about mental health struggles and the more honest we are, the more destigmatized it becomes. I agree with all of that. However, I'm actually worried about her in the sense that you can't be an advocate for mental health if you're not alive. Like, she's very openly said she almost died of a drug overdose, like pretty recently. She's really openly said that she wants to hurt herself a lot of times. And while I don't know what she's doing behind the scenes to get help, I hope that she is doing something, because that's not something to be taken lightly. I honestly feel like instead of telling all of that to her YouTube audience, which yes, it does destigmatize things, but like help yourself first. Like get in a position where you're okay, because the pattern I'm kind of seeing right now, just from an outside perspective, again, I don't know her, but the pattern I'm seeing right now is she says, I'm doing better, I'm getting help, I'm the best I've ever been in my life. And then she'll post a video of her and she'll be like, I'm not drinking, I'm not doing drugs anymore. And then she'll post a video where she's obviously just incredibly blasted the entire video. Like she posted that MTV video talking about her addiction, and then immediately posted a video with Modson where they were traveling across country in a van where she was just incredibly drunk and messed up on pills the entire time. She was also recently called out by multiple Black creators because she was incredibly discriminatory against them a couple of years ago. She was called out about 2 months ago, and she keeps saying she's going to address it and talk about it, but she's basically ghosted most of her social medias since that happened. She doesn't really post on Instagram except the stories. She doesn't really post on Twitter. She doesn't really post on YouTube. She only really posts on OnlyFans and TikTok, and she's just kind of completely ghosted off of all the platforms. Every 2 weeks, she kind of gets called out for it. The like fan outrage gets really loud, and she'll address it and she'll be like, it's coming, I just wanted to personally work on myself and make sure I gave the best response possible to all of this, and then she doesn't post it for another 2 weeks, and then she says again, I take full accountability, there's no reason it should have taken this long, and then it's another 2 weeks and she doesn't post it. She's saying, I've been thinking about this video so hard, I've been planning it so hard, I've been working on it so hard, I really want to make sure it's the best video possible. But at the same time, she posts on her Instagram story every day, hanging out with her friends, going to parties, getting glammed, doing all of going to that stupid steakhouse that's still serving influencers during COVID. Becoming really clear to everyone in this situation, including her like die-hard fans, that she literally just doesn't care. If and when she actually does come out with a legitimate apology for this whole situation, based on all of the other apology videos I've watched, I can literally tell you exactly what she's going to say. To talk about how heavily it's been weighing on her. She's going to talk about how she filmed filmed the video at least 10 times, and she filmed for 10 hours straight, and then she deleted all the footage, and it's the hardest video she's ever had to film, which, by the way, she has said in every single apology video. She's going to talk about the fact that there's no excuses and she's taking accountability, but then she's probably going to make an excuse. And at this point, I think it's just getting old. 2019 was huge for Tana in the sense that she became more mainstream because of the Jake Paul thing and the MTV show, but it was really bad for her in the sense that I think a lot of her fans that have really stuck by her are absolutely just over it with her. And I think this is for a lot of reasons. I think her fan base is growing up and they're getting older and they're kind of aging out of this type of content, and she's not really growing with them. She's not really maturing or growing up with them. I also think she's used the excuse of, oh, I'm young, I'm gonna make mistakes, like way too many times, and I think because now her fan base is like her age, they're just kind of over it. It's honestly kind of nutty looking at her Twitter account because it used to be all of her stans. Every time she tweeted, it was like, yes, Tana, we love you, you're a queen. And now it's really the majority of her replies are people just calling her out and telling her like, we're sick of this, like apologize. Be the person that we've been begging you to be for like 2 years. Right now, she hasn't posted in over 2 months, and I think one of the crazier things about Tana in her life is that when you watch back her first videos, it's so clear that she had such a love and a passion for YouTube. Like, she uploaded all the time, and you can just see as the years went by that deep love and passion for YouTube has absolutely gone away. I think what will really end up being kind of her downfall is just that over time, I think as scandal after scandal after scandal after all of these things, I think people are just sick of it. And I think I'm sick of it. Honestly, like writing this whole thing, I literally wrote in the notes, I am sick of hearing about this and talking about this, and I chose actively to make this video. Like, it gets really frustrating after a point in time because it's just kind of the same mistakes over and over again, the same excuses over and over again. And I think it's frustrating because you do see these really authentic, like real moments from her, especially like when she talks about her mental health, and you see those, and then it's just kind of like BS after that. She's really yet to show that she can actually grow and learn from her mistakes, which I think is going to be a massive downfall for her. While I'm sure Tana still has, I know she still has millions of fans, she still has millions of people who adore her, and she's probably going to stay popular for a while. I do think that as each scandal happens, it's kind of like chipping away at a block, and eventually there's just going to be nothing left to chip at. You just see that as every little tiny scandal and all these big scandals compound, she's losing more and more people and losing more and more support. And that's the end of the video. That's my thoughts on the evolution of Tana Mongeau and her content, and that's the present. That's where we are now. I feel like this video doesn't really have a more like neatly tied up ending the way that the Gabby video did, because it's still very much an in-process story. There's not really like a peak in a pit yet. There's nothing that's really happened like that. Her whole career has kind of just been a roller coaster of ups and downs. So it's going to be really interesting, I think, to watch her and see how she navigates things, how she goes forward after everything, just to see what happens with her. I don't know. She could really end up being kind of like Paris Hilton-esque and like making her perfumes and like staying really relevant despite, you know, her peak being gone, or she could just like be done in like 2 years. Like, it really could go either way with her. But yeah, I know this video was absolutely way too long and I'm so sorry, but there was so much I felt the need to cover. I know I missed some things. I'm positive I missed some things, but I hope I did a decent job trying to show a good, at least kind of clear story of how everything happened. Let me know what you think about Tana and her career and everything down below. I loved reading the comments on the Gabby video, and also let me know who you want me to do next. I have some ideas, but I'm also really open to hearing what you guys want to hear me look into, and yeah. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, or dislike, or just subscribe, or do neither. Honestly, just so happy you're watching me. Thank you so much for being here. My merch, my social media, and everything I am wearing on my face will be linked down below, along with, very important, a link to register to vote. That's right, you can click on that link, you can register to vote, and you can be part of your democracy. Super fun thing to do. And also will be my little social justice spotlight, just like some important links, places to donate, and yeah. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!